Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Tonight we're going to talk about cybersecurity, and I'm going to show you an example of an SQL injection. Of SQL injection. So I was once exposed to SQL injection when I was very young, and I created my own ASP page. And I thought I was really good at programming because I could make this page very fast, and it was a page where I put down strategies for Civilization 2, which was just out at that point in time. But I did not know what SQL injection was, and so what actually happened was that I have I don't know if you know ASP, but there's a lot of you have your HTML structure, and then you have your .NET code mixed together, and there's usually a lot of queries, and there's a lot of database updates and deletes and inserts those are just mixed in with the code and also on weird in weird places. So it's not like there's no safety if you just run ASP out of the box. Then you can do a lot of bad stuff, and that is exactly what happened. So I'll just show you the principle. I don't remember exactly what was the real table name. It was like 20 years ago. So, but here we are. Here we have an example. Here we have a spaceship, and I have an ID, which is one of the columns. I have a captain column. I have a fuel lift column right here. So let us say that I created a UI, maybe a web UI, where I enable people to actually change the captain. So let us say that now I want to now I type in captain should be Mike, and then of course somewhere in my ASP that I have some SQL that looks something like this. Update spaceship set captain equal to Mike, where ID equal to 1. And let me just check. I marked too much. I think I marked where set captain equal to. Let me just delete this part right here. So I'll run this again. Yes, now it's okay. It's because it also ran the part that it didn't only run the part that I selected. So this editor right here, it's admin, by the way. And I have started up my database by I'm using Docker Compose, and you can do so if you want to try something like this. I'll, as usual, put the code on GitHub, so you can just you can just download, and then you can press play on these services right here. The file is inside Docker Compose, and then Docker Compose YAML right here. And here you can see my setup is right here. I have my database. This is my database that I have right here, which Postgres per default uses 5432 as the port. And this is my password, because we're going to talk about easy to guess passwords also a bit later. So just for fun, then I have chosen cat 2023. And that is, of course, a very stupid thing to do, to have a password like this. But for demo purposes, it's excellent, right? Here we have the admin interface. This is the UI that I sit in right now, and this is the one that enables me to actually run these queries right here. So let us go back. So now we should actually, if I run select right here now, so now I have now Mike is the captain. Actually, we should have select after the update also, so we can just run like this. So this was before. This is then we execute it, and then we can see the result afterwards. So now let's say that someone, instead of let's say we want a girl named Susan, she goes in and then she actually writes Susan like this, and then she also adds an int tag for the string like this, and then she says comma, and then she says fuel left equal to, and again she could use she can actually use string. It will be interpreted as an integer anyway. So she could write 99%. So now she will type this into the name fields that we have provided in the UI. So this means that she goes to the web UI, and then she types this as her name instead, right? And let us see when I create my SQL and I put my SQL together, then I put in the name right here. I'll just paste the content. It was almost right. I should not have had this last quotation. But let us say that this was what she typed in, right? So this was what she typed in right here. She typed something like this in, and then what happens is when I run my SQL like this, then you can probably guess what will happen. Now Susan just stole a lot of fuel. Now she has 99% of fuel left in her spaceship, and she is also the captain, right? So it's very easy to do SQL injection if there are no protection in your SQL statements. One way, of course, is manually to do something. I would not recommend you to do that. You should use, for instance, if you use JQL, the Java query language, then you can protect all of your queries with another query language like that. You can also, of course, you can check for quotes, and there are libraries and frameworks that you should use to execute your queries. You should not just create a regular database connection and then fire SQL directly down to the database. You should use the builders. You should use you should use the frameworks instead of just using SQL, and don't use SQL in general. Use JQL if you are programming with Java, of course, and then there are also languages for Python, for instance, and for .NET if you want to use that instead. So, but if you are putting an SQL together all by yourself, then you have to at least use a framework that will actually protect you from SQL injection. Don't try to. I would not recommend you to try to guess what a malicious user can actually type in right here, because you can actually do a lot of things with SQL. And right now we just updated one field, but you can actually also list all of the. You can do if you have access to SQL injection, then you can list all of the databases. You can list all of the tables, of course, depending on which user context that you actually run as, right? So you can actually do a lot of things. So it is a problem, and there are still found vulnerabilities regarding this problem nowadays. Also in big frameworks, big libraries, and that's also why it's important that you run something like OWASP if you're a Java developer, and you actually you look at your dependencies and you bump the versions to the newest one without security exploits in them. A lot of the Git repository providers like GitHub, Bitbucket, etc., they actually have plugins that you can install, and then you can see. And actually, GitHub, they have per default, they have a list of vulnerabilities, and then you get this annoying notification that you have to bump your versions because now a security hole is found in this library. Of course, and especially if you have a website where maybe based on React or Vue.js, then you have a lot of node modules and you have a lot of libraries, and it's very, very often that the vulnerability is found in one of these libraries. Fortunately, it's not that often that it's actually one that you specifically use, because some of the situations are actually quite special. Actually, those the situations. So you have to do some things in order for the exploit to be used. But that was SQL injection. So let us talk about something else. Also regarding cybersecurity. First of all, what is a cyber attack? That is, per definition, an attempt to steal, edit, delete, or disable information. So, and then, it's of course a cyber attack. That is an attack that happens in cyberspace. That means through computers. That means that some device or service is targeted. And so, what is cybersecurity? That is a way to actually prevent cyber attacks, right? That is the defense that you have against these cyber attacks. And one thing is, of course, two-factor authentication, sometimes three-factor authentications, and to use strong passwords. Use a password manager like Dashlane, LastPass, KeyPass. I think there are a lot of those password managers, and actually the browsers actually have the built-in password managers themselves. Like Google have one for Chrome, and I also saw that Microsoft have one for Edge. So, and Apple also have one for their system as well. So they are actually built into the operating systems nowadays. But you can actually, if you want one that works cross-platform, then you can choose one of the paid products. Yeah. So then you have, of course, you have some technical things. You can set up a firewall. There's something called VPN that so you can actually connect through a tunnel to a server somewhere in the world, and then all of your communication will be encrypted. You can also not go. Yes, you can also avoid connecting to Wi-Fi, public Wi-Fi's that you don't trust. There are a lot of things happening on those Wi-Fi's. There's actually people that just sit for fun and actually scan all of the devices on the network and scan for open ports and see what they can do just because they think it's fun. So if you are using a public Wi-Fi, as a bare minimum, use a VPN to connect to whatever you want to connect to. What is a malware attack? Malware, it stands for malicious software. That is where that word comes from. So it is just software with a hidden agenda. It's software that it gives you some service, it gives you some value, it provides you with a function, and it might do that in a very. It could be a good piece of software, but it just also have a hidden agenda. It has something that it's going to do at some point in time, and it doesn't have to be right away. It can actually dwell and sleep for some time, and then it can be activated. We have these. Last year, it was very popular to create Bitcoin miners, so miners that actually mine Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, but not for you, of course, for the person that actually coded the malicious software. So that means that was actually hidden into the software, and then a lot of times the software actually could actually notice if there were no activity on the device on the computer. Then it started mining, and of course it just used a bit more current, use a bit more electricity, and then you would not be able to see that actually something was wrong. Sometimes you could maybe the people that were affected they could actually hear that the fan actually went up in RPMs, revolutions per minute, because it was actually doing a lot when they thought that it was just the computer was just sleeping. Then it was actually mining cryptocurrencies, and the computer gets very warm, especially the graphic card, graphical processing unit gets very warm because that is one that is usually used for the mining. Okay, so that was then we have something called ransomware, where that is also very popular to use that. Then if some worker in a company by mistake presses some link and starts up a program, then that program can actually encrypt all of the files on the network and on all of the machines, and then afterwards, then a mail will be sent to everybody that works there, and said that if you want your files back, if you want them to be decrypted, then and if you want to get the key for decrypting them, then you need to pay us an amount of the Bitcoin, maybe 10 Bitcoins or something like that. And most companies, they actually are. I don't know about most actually. I don't know how many, but it's actually it's well known that some companies actually choose to pay up instead of actually paying for having their business down for a long time, and maybe they don't have the backup that they thought they actually had, and maybe it will take like maybe it will take like a week to restore all of the data, and at that time the business is down and they cannot make money in that time, and they still have the expenses for all of the employees, of course. So some companies actually choose to pay up, and some companies actually feel embarrassed by it, and they will not talk about it to the media, and they will not be public about it because it could actually lower the trust between their customers and themselves if the customers can see that they don't that the security is not okay, and maybe another time it could be some private information that was actually stolen instead of this ransomware attack. So so that's a bad thing about it. But it's difficult to do something about when when the companies don't want to pay, when you just pay and when they don't talk about it in public, of course. So then we have the phishing attack, and that is where you would actually register some domains that have almost the same address as the real domain, and sometimes you would also you use a scraper that scrapes the real page, and then you make pages that almost look like your web bank, for instance, and then And then when people then mistype the URL when they go to the browser, then they're a bit fast, so they just type something, then instead of Code Investigator, which is a beautiful web page right here, but then they can go to maybe some malicious site that is maybe it's registered in another domain like CM instead of com, or it could also be IT or something else like that, or maybe the local version was actually registered like I'm from Denmark, so maybe I registered the Danish one, but the commercial one, the country, the ones that goes across countries was not registered. Then of course someone can take that, and then they can then use that for picking up information, because when we come into a page that we actually recognize and that we think this is nice and usually use all of these services right here, then of course we put our guards down, right, and then we type in personal information without thinking, because we want to go and see the account, for instance, if it's a web bank. Then we have the man-in-the-middle attack. If you have seen the TV series Silicon Valley, then you will actually know that the way that they actually save the day in one of the episodes is actually to run a man-in-the-middle attack on at a convention. They set up Wi-Fi. They actually set up Wi-Fi hotspots, and then they actually lead the traffic to another download page than the official download page for this convention that they're having, and that means that they're tricking all of the convention goers to actually download a malicious version of the convention software, which means that they will also get their software installed of all of these devices. And this means that they could use that for storage, and that actually saves their company in the end. But it is of course not a good thing to do, and it's also so that's called a man-in-the-middle attack. When you are going in between, when you're going in between the destination of the receiver of the communication and of the sender of the communication, and then you can determine where the traffic should actually be directed to. That's a man-in-the-middle attack, and a lot of times it's made quite. It's quite discrete, so that means that it's only some domains that will be sent to the malicious servers. Most of the domains will just go to the correct servers. It's just if you go to, maybe it could be a big bank or something like that with a specific name, then it will actually go to this malicious site instead of going to the real bank site. So it is a way to direct traffic to malicious sites instead of what you think it is. And SSL, the certificates are very important, because that means that then you can actually see that this is not, now you're not the right place. You are actually not in at the bank's webpage. Now you're just at some other points. That is the whole point with having the certificate. So you should never visit pages that does not have a certificate. So if I go back to my page right here, then I can press right here. Then I can actually see that my connection is secure. And I can also see the certificate, it is valid. So it is, it is Let's Encrypt that has given me this certificate right here, and everything is fine, right? If you go to a page where it only says HTTP instead of HTTPS, you can see right here it says HTTPS. And this means that you communicate on port 443, and it also means that the communication between this website here and you is actually encrypted. So people should not be able to pick up the information, or if they do, they will not make anything of it, because it is actually encrypted. So make sure that it's HTTPS always when you go to a website. Then we have again, VPN is a good thing, and then we have passwords attacks. Yes, this is actually a funny one. This is actually, I think this is the most, and I actually don't know, but this is a very common way to be attacked. That is with the password attacks. Especially if you don't have two-factor authentication on your system, then there are a lot of programs, a lot of bots out there that can actually try to brute force systems with password attacks, and they actually also leak passwords that can be bought and used by these robots to go into different systems as a specific user, and then steal all the information, and also act on that user's behalf, which is yeah. So that's definitely not good. So that's called a password attack. So have a strong password. Actually, generate the password from one of the password generators, and then of course don't share these passwords and use two-factor authentication. So you need to have a two-factor authentication. That means that then it's much more difficult because then you also have to steal your. That's usually a key, a private key associated with your two-factor authentication, and this private key actually generates codes that are time limited. So that means that when you look at this code, then it only works for maybe 2 minutes or 5 minutes or whatever. Yeah, so that is a good thing about two-factor authentication. Then you also have to steal your phone. You have to steal your phone if you use that as your two-factor authentication device. You also have to find your passwords. Just for fun, let us go to Wikipedia. These are if you can recognize your password right here, then you have to change it right away. These are the top 100 used passwords. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is the most used one. We also have QWERTY. That's because the keys are very close to each other, and you can actually see it. There are actually 6 letters in it, so you have to. Yeah, so you actually have to move your finger one keystroke to write QWERTY. Yeah, then there's a lot of good names right here. Let me in. But a lot of and these lists right here, the programs, the malicious programs that try to brute force any system, but they will actually try with these and a combination of these words first. And then if that is not if that's not doable, then they will try to just brute force it from an end to another. But that takes a long time, and it's actually not possible if you have a strong encryption. Not without using quantum computers, which is a whole other talk. Quantum computers are just very, very strong computers, but we will talk about that in another video. Okay, physical address. First of all, there's tailgating, of course. Tailgating. This means that when someone goes in the door, then you say, "Hey, hold the door for me." Maybe you are the malicious person, not you, of course. The malicious person will then say, "Hey, please hold the door for me. I have to go up to IT department 704 or something like that." And then, of course, the person will actually hold it off. And then if you are a bit sophisticated, then you will actually have printed out a fake security card that looks right, but it doesn't work. Yeah. So maybe you will carry like 2 or 3 big cakes in the hand also, so people can see that there's a reason for you to that you actually ask for this gesture, for this service. But yeah, it is quite serious. So because if you get into the company, then of course the internal network is available, and then the first level of security is actually already bypassed, and that is the firewalls from the outside, etc. So it's not good to let people into your company that are not your real employees, of course. Another thing, do not flash your security card in public. Do not take a picture and send it to LinkedIn and say how proud you are to get this new job, and this is your new security card, because then, of course, it can be used to actually create a fake one, and then it is easier to get in. If you go for a walk during the day with your colleagues, then just hide your security card. There's no reason for making it easier for the cyber criminals. So there are some behaviors that you can actually do and have yourself. You should actually not click on external links, even if it comes from people that you trust. Of course, that's a bit boring. There's a lot of jokes out there that are fun to watch. Always have your guards up, of course. If you get a mail where it looks like it's too good to be true, like you can get free Netflix for 2 years if you click this link, then it probably is too good to be true. And always ask your IT department if you are in any doubts. You also forward the mails if you are in any doubts. There's actually an email filter that should catch most of these mails, but once in a while those mails cannot be caught because they are quite smart. The people that create these mails, they know what these emails security systems actually look for instance, IP address and special keywords, and if there are misspellings, or if a message has been sent out to hundreds of thousands of people, then it also addresses them. It's also classified as spam or malicious content. Yeah. Again, yeah. Impact, yeah, impact. I don't have to say that. That could be very expensive, and if it's a military installation that has been attacked, of course, that can actually mean that you will lose a war because the airplanes cannot leave the ground if suddenly someone hacked the airplanes and got access to those. Everything is online now these days, and even though it's not online. The different countries, of course, they have they're spending a lot of money on both on attacking and defending themselves in cyberspace and also electronically. And they actually, even though that systems that are not online, then they try to get access to those anyway, and hack those. You can just if you can search on examples for these things right here. Then there's something called APT, an Advanced Persistent Threat. That is, the definition right there is that there needs to be a specific purpose for the attack. You need to be a stealthy intruder, and it need to be an advanced attack. This means that if you get access to someone important server, and you have a specific purpose, maybe that could be to use a university's servers to send out to continue your attack to some third-party group. It could also be to launch a DDoS attack, where you spam some website until it cannot, or spam some website or service until it can actually not handle the regular customers. So that could be the purpose. But usually an APT is actually when someone gets access to something they should not have access to, and they pretend like nothing. So that means that they will actually just dwell for some time, where you will just pick up information and see what kind of rights they can get, and they will just look at stuff without doing anything. And then at some point they will go in and attack, maybe delete files, or maybe steal, delete, alter data, right, or avoid them from, or disable them so they cannot be accessed from outside. So so that is the APT. Then we have denial of service attack and DDoS, and that is sometimes combined with a where it will actually be blackmail first. So you get a blackmail mail where you say, hey, if you don't want to be DDoS, then send us some bitcoins to this account, and then we will not DDoS you. So that happens once in a while. And the trick here is that if a lot of requests are being sent into the same server, then it will be overwhelmed, and then it can actually not. Then it will deny service of the regular users, and then it doesn't work anymore. And it can be very costly for a company to be exposed to this. It will just continue spamming requests. What you can do right here, there are actually some services out there, and I know about at least one, but there are a lot of services out there that do this. There's something called Cloudflare. And this is actually they have a free tier that you can use if you want to try it out. And it's not like I'm not affiliated with Cloudflare at all. It's just one of the services that I know. Then what actually happens is that then you would actually point your domain to Cloudflare, and they actually know how to handle these DDoS attacks, and they can quickly react to what's going on, and then they can block the IP addresses that are actually trying to do this, and so they can find a pattern in the communication that actually tries to take down your server. So that means that they will handle their part. That is their service. That they will avoid you being DDoSed. Yeah, so that means that the domain, you will point your domain name to Cloudflare. Inside Cloudflare, you can go and configure and say that this traffic should be routed to this and this service or server inside your own or inside your own cloud project, for instance. SQL injection attack, we already saw that. Cybersecurity career, yes, they are highly valued. The cybersecurity guys. There's a lot of responsibility in having that position as the security dude, because if something goes wrong, of course everybody will look at you, right? Why didn't you target this before it actually happened? So Yeah, and what about the future? I don't have to say it, but I would say it anyway. Everything actually is of course is online nowadays, so that means that the need for cyber for having having some security is of course it's just getting higher and higher. And you should always secure. Do not skip. Do not cut corners. Do not skip anything regarding security. It is very important. Yeah. That was actually it. It was just I know it was just a small talk about cybersecurity, and then there was that example with the SQL injection. Yeah, tell me in the comments below if you want to hear about some other stuff, or else I think next week will probably be some yes, maybe some cloud development. I haven't decided yet, but have a great evening, and hope to see you again soon. Bye bye.